Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this series of interviews. As we all know, United Nations has declared 20th November as Africa Industrialization Day. Now, this day is declared to promote the industrialization in Africa because we all know for the globe as well, the industrialization of Africa not only will support the African continent, but also it will support the development of overall global economy. So as a part of this initiative, Greta Faber Infinite have launched a series where we are inviting some of the eminent personalities from African industries who are coming on this show, and they're talking about their perspectives about African industrialization, how it has come forward, as well as what's the future of Africa's industrialization. So in continuation of it, today we have very, very eminent personality from the very good industry, which we call it as a blend of agricultural as well as industrialization industry. So it's a tea industry. We all drink tea. So most of us, like me, everyone's day starts with a tea. So tea is very close to our heart, right? And there are various aspects which we discuss about the tea. But very few of us know like how the tea industry is performing, what are the challenges this industry is having, and how it is overcoming those challenges. To discuss this, we have with us Mr. Joseph Ngige. Thank you very much, sir, for accepting our invitation and welcome to this series of interview.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vishal. It's a pleasure being here. I'm happy to have been invited.
Thank you, sir. So Mr. Joseph is a managing director of one of the leading tea organization in Africa, that is Karirana Estates. Now, Karirana Estates is an example of full vertical integration. They have their own estates where they grow the tea, then they have their own processing unit, and then they also have a distribution channel. They sell it to the bulk option, bulk tea selling, as well as to up to the retailer under the Eden Tea brand. And it's one of the brand which is one of the fastest growing tea brand in Africa. And Mr. Joseph is a veteran from this industry. In fact, here I'm sure he will talk more about it, but with the way I know, he has spent most of his life in the tea industry. So I can say we have an encyclopedia of the tea industry with us. So let's begin this discussion, sir. So, sir, we would like to know more about you as well as your association with Karirana Estates and the tea industry.
Thank you, and once again, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure being here on recording something for the African Industrialization Day. My name is Joseph Ngige. I am the managing director of Karirana Estates Limited. As you have mentioned, we are an integrated tea company that operates in the whole value stream, from primary production to value addition for the final consumer. The company has been in this business for over 60 years, basically exporting to the auction to the world market through the Mombasa Tea Auction. But for the last 10 years, we've also been in the value-added space, where we diversified our production, and 50% of our tea now is processed in value-added form for the final consumer. As you have mentioned, it's a coincidence that when I was researching on the African Industrialization Day, I actually noted that it started in 1990. The first one was celebrated on 20th November 1990. That was just 1 month after I graduated from university.
Okay.
And after I graduated from university, I've only worked in the tea industry. So I have been in the tea industry as long as the African Industrialization Day has been.
Wow, that's a great coincidence.
I have an engineering background in electrical and electronics engineering, graduating from the University of Nairobi in 1990. I have practiced most of my career within the tea industry, having cut my teeth at Unilever Tea for 4 years before I moved to my current company, Karirana Estates Limited, where I have been for close to 28 years now. And so I have seen the development from the bulk business to the value-added business And I'm happy to say that it is positive, and it gives me a lot of satisfaction to see what ideas are capable of delivery. So like I've mentioned, we are in both spaces. We are in value-added space, where we sell 50% of our tea through our own local brand called Eden Tea. And we also sell now the balance of 50% through bulk tea through the auction, and which is exported to many countries in the world. A lot of it going to Pakistan, to Egypt, to India, to the UAE, to Pakistan, to UK, to Egypt, to UAE, and to Sudan, and very many other countries that import our tea. I think that's a bit of the story about the tea industry and my association with it.
Great, great. So 28 years is a long journey, sir. Great.
Thank you.
So, as we know, being slightly associated with the tea industry, like others industry, tea industry is also facing a stiff competition. Many new players are coming. This industry is really becoming a global industry now. Like you said, you are exporting, and there are many people who are coming from outside to Kenya as well. So the competition is growing. So now, Karirana Estates, what are the initiatives taken by Karirana Estates so that you stay ahead of the competition?
As you have mentioned, staying ahead of competition is made possible by the customers. For us to be ahead of the competition, it means our customers have valued the products and services that we give them. As I've mentioned, we have two spaces in which we play. We have the bulk tea, where we play in the auction through the Karirana tea mark. And for this year, we have maintained the top position in terms of price levels as far as the plantation teas are concerned. On the value-added front, we began about, we launched our Eden Tea brand in 2007, towards the end of 2007. And I am happy to report that we have grown in the local tea market to currently command position 2 in market share, which is quite an achievement, taking into account that we have more than 100 registered packers in the country. So out of those 100 plus packers, Eden Tea commands the second position in terms of market share. But history has proven that a customer is looking for value. And what we focus on is how do we create value for the customer? We adopt the Kaizen philosophy. And in the Kaizen philosophy, there are 3 things that we look at. The customer is looking for quality, they are looking for costs, they are looking for delivery. If you are able to address those 3 factors in the best way possible, then you are likely to get the demand from your customers that will keep you ahead of the competition. So that is what keeps us awake at night, looking at ways and means of how do we raise our levels of quality, reduce our costs, and increase our ability to deliver to the customers on time, in full, error-free every time. And how do we do this? We do this through understanding quality and all these aspects from the perspective of the customer. We have realized that sometimes a manufacturer may define quality in their perspective, but that perspective may differ from what the customer defines the quality to be. But the old time statement that customer is king still holds sway even today. So we use what is called the voice of the customer to understand the needs of our customers in terms of feedback on what is it that they would want us to deliver. And we use the strategy canvas. The strategy canvas is a graph that helps you to identify what are the factors that the customer is looking for. Quality could be one, price could be one, reliability could be another, loyalty in terms of consistency could be another. We look at all those factors and we assess how is our products meeting those standards. But because we are operating in a competitive environment, we also assess those factors against how competition is doing and how the industry in general is doing. So that gives us opportunities to look at what are the key factors, what are the key attributes that a customer is looking for. Then those are the ones we address. The strategy canvas allows us to take 4 decisions. The first one is we might find that some of those factors, we may be high in them, but they are not necessary in the point of view of the customer. They are good to have, but are not a necessity. And you can decide to eliminate them or even to reduce them so that you are able to address the costs that are favorable to the consumer. Because at the end of the day, the consumer is looking for value. The quality, the cost, and delivery are all can be summarized into one statement: value. How much value are we giving to our customer? When we compare how we are faring on those attributes, compared to the market, compared to the market leader, then we may also find that they are critical factors where we are underperforming, yet they are rated very high by the customer. Then we need to raise those factors in our services and in our products. There are others that we may be very high above the market or above what the market is looking for and what competition is doing. Then we reduce those. So we are able to raise certain factors, reduce certain factors, and eliminate others. And we might find that there are certain attributes that we actually don't have, and then we will create them. That way, we are able now to reach the levels that the customer needs, and that naturally pulls you to the top. But we also look at the definition of who is our customer. Sometimes we may narrow it down to the final consumer, but we have learned over the years that the customer is not just the final consumer. For example, we need to have a product that the final consumer will go for. But for us to reach the final consumer, we have other stakeholders. We have channel partners, distributors, wholesalers, retailers. What are their needs and how do we address them? Internally, we have our own employees. How do we deal with them so that they are also satisfied? We also do a canvas for them so that we are also able to deliver value to them so that they are also able to deliver value for the products and to the external customers. And how do we relate also with our suppliers? All these people are looking for value. The final consumer is looking for value. The distributors and channel partners are looking for value. The employees are looking for value. The suppliers are looking for value. Once we address that, then it's the customers who put us ahead of the competition. Maybe that's how I would want to answer the question.
Great, very well said, sir. So it's great to learn that something like strategy canvas and operational excellence is actually these are the tools and techniques which are helping the organization to stay ahead of the competition. And it's a really innovative thinking which the organization is doing. I personally feel proud that by some or other means we are associated with this particular journey. So it's a special proud factor for us also. Now, coming from Karirana Estates we go to the African industry. You have seen African industry growing in last 28 years, to be precise. So yes. How do you reflect on it? Like African industry, which was there when you started your career, and the industry today. So how you will describe it?
Thank you very much. In Africa, we are about the third largest supplier or producer of tea after China and India. Kenya is actually the third largest and the leading in Africa. And Africa contributes about 12.1% of tea production in the globe. And this has been increasing over the years. But the biggest challenge is also that we are actually the largest exporter of tea. In other words, we export about 40%, we produce about 12% of the global production, but we export 40% of the global exports, meaning that we are producing for export. So in terms of primary agriculture, we have seen a lot of growth over the years. But the challenge that I see, and which I think is relevant to the African Industrialization Day, is that Africa is exporting their tea products mainly as commodities, which are then value added elsewhere and sometimes brought back to certain parts of Africa for consumption.
Okay.
When you look at the fact that Africa delivers about 40% of exports, let me take the Kenyan example. Kenya delivers about 29% of the exports. We produce about 8%. We export about 29% globally, but we produce 8%. People like Sri Lanka, they contribute about 4.6% and export about 19% or about 16 or so percent of the tea. But their value in terms of the export earnings are higher than those of Kenya. Why? Because Kenya and Africa in general, we are getting engaged in the primary agriculture, but we are exporting commodities instead of going into the agro-business side, which adds value, takes the products from the upper side of the value stream to the downward side, where value is created, and therefore increase the amount of value that you bring to the company, and to the countries, and to the economies at large. For example, in Kenya, tea delivers about 25% of all the foreign exchange earnings that the country attracts. And this can be reflected in Africa. But we also contribute about 2% of the Kenyan GDP. If value addition, if we were to export the 95% or so of tea in better value than we are achieving now, then we are able to raise our revenues, our returns by even 3 times. That means if we are delivering about 25% of our foreign exchange earning, we have the capacity to raise that to double or even to triple. Mm-hmm. If we are contributing 2% to the GDP, it is possible for tea without producing anything more, just the tea we have. If manufacturers could add value and reach out to the market at the value-added form, they would raise the contribution to the GDP to 5% or even to 6%. So that is the challenge I have seen. We are endowed with a very good climate for primary production, but I think the manufacturers have not done enough to move from primary production to the more value-added points of the value chain, where money is made, where value is made. And if that is done, then you are able now to raise the cost of the standard of living of the rural communities, because the tea industry happens in the rural area. It's a very good catalyst for socioeconomic transformation in the rural areas. In Kenya, tea industry supports about 10% of the population. So you can raise the standard of living for that 10%, or even raise it, because if you go into agribusiness, then you are going to raise the number of jobs, and not just the number of jobs, but raise quality jobs than what we currently have, and raise the standard of living and create employment for the young people who are coming out of the educational institutions. So that is the space I see in the African tea industry for the years that I have been there.
Great, sir. Glad to know, very glad to know that such a value integration going forward, like how can you create more value to your customers, and then at the end of it, it's not just giving to the customer, but how it can help to the national economy and in turn the African economy. So, and I'm sure Eden Tea by Karirana is one of the example of it, like how can you give more value to your customer and help the organization, the country, and the continent overall. So now, the way I'll come to the last part of this question of this interview series. There are many new players now coming in into the manufacturing sector, not only tea but other sectors as well. So I can see various new organizations, new startups are coming, new generation is coming into the business, and they really want to do something different. They really want to go on, as I say, your advice of giving more value to the nation in larger perspective. So what would be your advice to them? Like what should be the ingredients that they should keep in mind when they want to either start their business or they want to scale up their business?
Thank you for the question. I believe in that people can start small, but create a growth mindset. Always create a growth mindset. Look at the tools that are available. For example, in operational excellence, there are many tools that people can use to help you to continuously grow. Some of them would be like the Kaizen principle of low-cost automation. You don't require very huge capital costs, but you can innovate even with very little expenditure. Low-cost ideas that cost you very little, but give you very huge growth in terms of value. But in line with the African Industrialization Day, what I feel is also we need to look at things that are friendly to the environment. For example, some of the things that we are doing now, some of the high costs in the manufacturing sector in Africa have to do with the energy, have to do with the effects of climate change. And there are many things, there are many tools now that one can leverage to address this. For example, we are addressing energy in terms of using green energy in solar. We are putting in grids that will help us to lower the cost of energy or reduce our dependence on the national grid. Recently, we did a very small Kaizen project, and we have identified a fuel combustion optimizer that you put in the fuel tanks of our distribution vehicles, and it lowers the emissions, the carbon emissions by 80%. Wow. But at the same time, it reduces our fuel consumption by almost 13 to 15%. Very low cost device, but with very huge implications. So even as people go into growing the manufacturing sector, it is good to think, start small and grow with the time. The other issue is how do we ride on the intra-African trade? Africa has a population of more than 1 billion people. I think as at November 15, when the world is said to have reached the 8 billion person, Africa is about 1.4 billion in population, and with a combined GDP of about $3 trillion US. But intra-Africa trade is just at about 17%. Like I mentioned, tea is grown in Africa, sent to Europe, packed in Europe, and brought back to be consumed in Africa. But if we can raise the intra-Africa trade maybe to the levels that is seen in Europe, where 60% of their trade is within themselves, about 70% in Europe, and close to the same in Asia. Then that is going to raise value. But number two, like we have mentioned, they should think value addition, and value addition. And it doesn't have to be complicated value addition. Low cost automation, use of technology to reach out to the customers. For example, we have introduced what we call a field force automation system that helps us to manage our salespeople. They are able to raise the orders real time when they are at the customer premises and they are serviced quickly. We are able to use a lot of technology, even e-commerce now. We are able to ride on e-commerce and therefore reduce the cost, increase the reach to your customers, and improve value. And like we've mentioned, the customer is looking for value. If you create value, the customer will go for it.
Great. Thanks for that advice, sir. I'm sure all the players in the industry will take this advice, and very interesting perspective of the trade between the African countries. So I'm sure the industry leaders will take it up, and this particular phenomena moment will start soon, that we start seeing more trade between the African countries, and in turn getting more value to the every nation. So with this, sir, I would like to conclude this today's interview. Thank you very much for sparing time from your busy schedule. Lots of insights which you have shared today, the insights related to the tea industry, how value addition is important, what is really value addition, how concepts of operational excellence, strategic canvas can help the organization to take the organization to the next level, and what my young friends who are entering into the industry or doing the starting their startups, what they should look for. So I'm sure this will add lots of value to all the future entrepreneurs who will be joining this mainstream now. For this, I thank you once again on behalf of myself as well as on behalf of my team Faber Infinite Consulting. I would thank you for your time. I also like to take this opportunity to thank our partners and patrons for supporting us in this particular initiative. And in advance, I wish all of us a very happy African Industrialization Day, and let this interview series and overall the way African industry is growing take the Africa to the next level, and we all witness this journey. So thank you once again. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And we are happy to work with Faber Infinite. A lot of those tools, as a result of our interaction with you, adding value to us, even as we add value for mutual benefit. So happy Africa Industrialization Day to everyone, even as we grow Africa's manufacturing and intra-Africa trade. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.